Do we diversify or do we just remove?
Good job.
We did some work down in Decatur where their system was designed for almost your size, 100,000, while the population now is 75. And they're maintaining a level of service at 100,000, and it's not necessary. So they're making some tough decisions on reduction of service to right-size their agency. And this type of analysis allows them to justify some of those end decisions.
In regards to your justifications, like I said, I'm still not clear in regards to what you call your rating process in regards to justifying a populace in regards to a perfect park versus a bad park, in regards to what's in the park in regards to the enemies and so forth, in regards to how do you classify your ratings and so forth. For basic standards.
You had classified it as a typical park.
Well, what's a typical park?
Well,
A typical park, like I said, someone who's probably walked around about 5,000 of these, for a neighborhood level service, would have essentially about 4 components. And it's amazing how, for right or wrong, this is what America looks like. And typically there's a playground in there, some sort of little shelter or picnic facility, some open turf grass, and often one other feature. It might be a little half-court basketball, it might be someplace horseshoes or volleyball, there's some other facility. So these 4 components, it might be a walking loop trail, that may be what's in there, but typically 4 basic components, and then the site itself. So that's what we've used in essence here, in other words, when we looked at a typical park in your community, it followed that model.
Well, in that case here, okay, what you just mentioned, all those elements, is that classified as a 3, 2?
Depends on the value of the things that are in it. So it would have, if it's got 4 components plus the site, then it would have a score somewhere between 10 and 15.
Providing everything.
Without, before the modifiers, and the modifiers can change that score. So if it was in a beautiful, incredible views, 100-year-old shade trees, had a restroom, had benches, it might score 30.
Okay, I'm just saying is that what is it that you're classified on ratings for an excellent park?
It depends on the community. It depends on really what the community standard is. So that's the thing. There isn't really, we're not really benchmarking or comparing. We're not using some national standard because one doesn't exist. So our model uses comparing you against what the community norm seems to be. Now, if Todd does a survey and the answer is, boy, all our parks are horrible, then that's telling us that community standard is not acceptable to the community.
Well, you're not shooting us a standard baseline, I'm saying. We got to look at what you guys did think of what's a great rating. We don't know what your taste, your values are. And we have other people here value things differently.
And
so you see it's, the common trend for all parks. That means we're not planning wisely. We're not planning with major, like I said, we want us trust in regards to utilizing our monies so we're producing what the community is requiring.
well, let me address a little bit of, I think,
it does, but you can do validity and reliability testing on the instrument and say, okay, trained coders under similar situations, what % agreement do you get? And really, anything over 70% agreement is considered a valid, reliable, and valid instrument. I'm probably getting 80% range before I run kappa statistics on it. So it's a valid instrument for purposes of scientific research. It's been tested that way.
Is it possible you could maybe email Carlo and then he can forward it on to all of us?
Sure.
A listing of, okay, a 1 equals needs improvement, a 2 equals meets standards, a 3 equals, and then the typical park scenario that is based on the criteria for our district, the 25-mile-per-hour maximum speed limit, all that came into play. What the typical park top score would be for like a typical park that's got everything going on that's perfect versus a typical park that's just kind of just to answer all their questions so that we all are coming from the same place and understand it correctly. Does that make sense?
sure, but yes, we can do that, but when I came here last time, remember I kind of talked about your community parks have a lot of diversity within them.
They do.
And that's why they're rated so high. If you look at the graphs scores, your community parks, which have good accessibility, they were a primary focus of the district in the past, and they reflect that. Neighborhood parks are more like the slide that Robbie showed at the beginning. You put a brand new play structure on an old system. They're rated low because they don't have all the other attributes and amenities that one would expect to create that environment. And so that's going
Well,
back to
that's
Peter's
back-
point,
back
is
to
that
what-
your neighborhood park system is adequate. It's got great walkability, it's got good level of service, but the design ambiance scale is very low the way we rank them because they are cookie cutters. They're the same format over and over and over again, and I can show you slide after slide of them just rotating the playground, putting in the same shelter, which they're all rusted out. So your critique of your own system is on the big level, it's very satisfactory, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, there wasn't a lot of creativity or diversity within the system to create those higher scores for that perfect park.
Well, and I think
Or
the part of the issue with that was the immense growth all at once, and the district trying to keep up with that and developing all these parks all at the same time.
And it's not a criticism of
No, I know, but
what you
that's-
did, it's
that's
just,
how it
that is where
became.
we are today.
That's how it got there, and unfortunately, most of them are around the same age, so they're gonna need to all be updated around the same time.
So once again, it's our opportunity to
Right,
do it differently. Not right or wrong, to do it differently. And we now have a good benchmark of what we have in terms of the level of service. We have a great benchmark in terms of the community survey expectations. So we can craft goals and objectives to meet the needs of where we are in 2015 to 20
right.
versus in the past.
Maybe this will help, because there's no right or wrong answers for these, there are no national standards. NRPA went away from national standards 20 years ago. Everybody still uses them because there was nothing to take their place. Even though NRPA, you call NRPA today and they'll tell you, no, those are obsolete, we don't support them. Everybody still uses them because nothing has taken their place. What we've developed is something that can be used in place of that, and just like the obsolete old system, it's sure, there's nothing perfect. There's an amount of subjectivity in everything, but what we're trying to do is use trained observers, comparing to normative community standards, and comparing with other types of inputs, such as the focus groups, the survey information, and staff. Staff knows a lot. In any community I work with, park staff are really knowledgeable people. They know what their community thinks and feels and all that. So there are a lot of sources of input, but when you sort it all out and we tabulate all those things, this is what I was talking about before. Here's your district. I know you can't see those little numbers, but I'm going to tell you what they mean. These are just a sampling. We've done over 100 communities.
Want me to zoom in a little bit?
That type of analysis. And these are some of those. And we want to look at the ones in shaded gray because they're similar. Can you pin?
There we go.
So we're going to compare you to Pearland, Texas, Winter Haven, Florida, Meridian, Idaho, and North Clackamas Park District, or it's a suburb of Portland, Oregon, because purely on the population. So we could sort this in other ways, but we're going to benchmark you against them at this particular moment, based purely on your population. When we do that, now we need to see what these all. I believe this is the size in acres, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Maybe zoom back out and I'll just.
Just trying to delete some of that.
So this may help because you're kind of saying, well, what's perfect? There is no perfect, but there are norms among other communities that we can compare to. And what we find is that if we compare to these communities, as we said, you have 89 park sites, which is pretty high compared to the other population, other areas. Pearland, Texas only has 21, but North Clackamas has 93. And you can look at the population range here, 29. You're 29,000 or so. North Clackamas is 23, and Pearland's 30. And Pearland only has 21 sites. You have 89, and North Clackamas has 93. But if we look at the number of components, the things that were counted in those, we find that you have 350 components that were identified. North Clackamas has 295 components. Pearland only has 164. You have, in your average park site, 4 components. That's why when I said, what's a typical park? A typical park, are there's 4 components? Well, you're right in line with that. You have 4 components in your parks. North Clackamas averages 3.2 per park. Pearland, notice they had a lot fewer sites, but they have double the number of things. They have 7.8 things in each park. So they have a lot fewer parks, but they have twice as many things in each park. So again, there's no one answer. There's no rubber stamp for this. They do it by having fewer sites with more things in them. That would mean they may have less coverage, it may mean other factors, but that's the difference between those communities. Then if we look at this total grass value, that's our score for their whole system. After all the modifiers, after all the math is done, we find your total score for your community is 1,766. Pearland scores at 1,556, not that far off. North Clackamas scores at 2,207. So that's where those scores come into play. That's where the variability comes in. Even though you have a similar amount of components, North Clackamas probably got a little higher on some amenities. Maybe they don't have as many playgrounds that are in need of replacement, so their score went up.
Their
That
design
kind of-
ambiance.
Yeah, other factors. So this is how we can begin to say where you fall. There's no right or wrong place, but you can begin to say what does it compare.
What about the key factor in regards to the citizens, in regards to, in the community, their appreciation, their input in regards to the likes and dislikes?
We'd have to go to
Was there any factor in there giving a rating,
That's the
of the parks and so forth?
that would be in the surveys, and that's actually what I'm doing my dissertation on, believe it or not, is I'm looking at 4 communities to look at how those factors play into that equation. So,
Probably one of
no, you're not.
You already selected your.
Do you want to be? No,
I'm
so,
too far down the road, don't.
Because that's going to be the end results, it's customer satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm looking at level of satisfaction and how does it relate to how big are parks, how many parks do you have access to, and what's in those parks. I'm looking at all these factors,
We'll be interested in reading it.
and that's what I'm doing my dissertation on, so.
but just to refresh our memories in terms of the maintenance and what people's feelings in terms of how the parks are maintained, you had excellent marks in that.
Yeah, I did.
So, kind of what Robbie's alluding to is that your score at 1766 is lower than a very comparable community that was done 3 years ago in Oregon. And I think kind of what I was alluding to, the difference is what they built and how they built it. Not what they, what is inside there. It's the ability to create a environment that's reflected in a higher score. So if you did this 15 years down the road, your
Hopefully it's go
score
up.
with a little bit different attention to detail and having more time maybe to do the things that you would have done maybe differently 20 years ago, that should move up.
Unless you do nothing, in which case
It
it's
might
gonna
go down.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a question for you in regards to all the rest of the park facilities around us. Do we have any kind of graphs on that in regards to comparison?
We don't, because again, we're the only ones.
Like I said, being out of state, that's, you're just a different part of the continent. Like I said, let's get around to the local area. That's what we should be concentrating on in regards to what our local community and outside competitors, park districts.
Well, you do have one, you have Arlington Heights that you're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not nearly the same size, but it is a larger district.
To make this comparison, we would need the data, and that's the
Well,
problem, because we're doing this
Because we gotta
technique.
stick locally, can't be going across states and so forth, because, hey, we're not competing with them. We're competing here in regards to making the park attractive and, providing what our people, people in our community need. So, in regards to what's being provided on the outside.
Methodologically, it would make sense to go, through the US and kind of use those numbers comparatively, because then that would be a national standard if we're going to have one. I mean, for your matrix.
Be
No,
national norm.
No, we are going to do some peer agency comparisons, and Naperville will be one of them. I think, Carlo, we were waiting to get some,
No,
did you send the data?
Yeah, no, we had Shanahan, Lockport Township, we did not have
We
any.
can get that. I mean, we can get
Fox
that.
Valley did not respond. because it was a request. Oswego, it was a fourth one, there was 4 altogether. Carroll Stream maybe, I think was the fourth one. Carroll Stream, we received 4 back.
So we're looking for larger agencies, neighboring agencies.
One of the things we had requested was a survey of all the neighboring agencies
Okay.
to compare. Now it's a request that we need them to respond to, so we got, like I said, we got a couple, Blackport Township just to our east. We did Oswego and Shanahan, both bordering us. We did not get Fox Valley or neighborhood, but we got Carroll Stream, which is a district not in our capacity in residency, but in budget-wise, they're similar. So we targeted, I think, about 20 districts total that either matched us acreage-wise, residency-wise, or budgetary-wise, in the same, to try to compare those 3 levels.
And it's coming up in a future
Well,
presentation.
that's one of the things that we have to,
Right.
that'll be part of the full.
So this was really analysis of the system,
Right,
so there'll be more comparatives of agency comparisons, you know, as we develop our findings.
I mean, ultimately, it's hard to always compare apples to apples,
Yeah.
just in the simple factor of when we do things of our budget, we can do our budget-wise. Like I said, Carroll Stream has the same budget as we do, or similar budget, but their residency is a quarter of ours, so they have a higher tax rate. So we try to take different factors and compare as best as possible, but to ever compare it exactly to exactly, it's impossible.
Well, it's good to know for us in regards to try to keep us on the leading edge of, you know, competitive trends and so forth, you know,
And that's what
as we invest monies into
right,
our
and that's one of
system.
our jobs as staff, when we are going through the redevelopment, we're looking at what do we want to put in, so like, when we just did Mayfair, we didn't just put the same park, we could have come in and we could have just taken out the equipment and just put the exact same park in. We decided to change the plaza a little bit, go with a little bit different pathway, because we looked at the scope of the whole area
Gotcha.
prior to getting this whole thing. If you, like, today I sat at Mayfair, and that park was being utilized at about 1 o'clock by about 25 people, which, if I go back 6 months before when I first started, that park was desolate. So revamping of a park does bring the attraction in, but it's sometimes doing more than just, we're gonna change the playground equipment, we need to change the whole area. That's what one of Jen's main focuses is looking at, when we're doing a redevelopment, what kind of components would be best servicing that area or that population.
Gotcha. It was, like I said, in regards to the matters of decimals, could be a situation where, you know, regards to security and so forth, you know, in the area and so forth, but.
No, it was
yeah,
just-
it's something to look at too, you know.
And I think some of that is the revitalization of some of the area that the equipment that we need to look at as we move forward. This was just taking a sole analysis of what do we have, and are we at least putting are we meeting populations roughly in respect to traveling or distance from where they can go? So are we giving people, in our best efforts, giving them amenity within their range? And that's one of those things going back to the Lakewood, while it didn't show the Lakewood Falls subdivision, it didn't show an amenity, but we know while it's not rated in our system, as a side note, we have them, there are amenities there, they're just not within our park district, they're in the village of Romeo.
Gotcha.
So that's some of the things that we'll communicate back and forth as we're going through the final procedure.
And I just wanted to highlight 1 or 2 key numbers that on the far side of the chart that we didn't see. One that's really useful to me is to take that total score for your whole system and normalize it for the population, and we call it a GRASP index. And when we do that for these other communities, again, this is Clackamas, you, and Pearland, your index of value, total system value based on the population is 17. It's an index of 17. It's basically a GRASP score per population in thousands. Clackamas is 19 and Pearland is 15. So that you see you're really right in that range in terms of what you're providing, the net value of that on a per capita basis. So when you look at what you provide based on your population, it really compares favorably with those neighboring communities. The range on here, somebody's got 48, that might be Vail, Colorado or somewhere. And then we go way down low, somewhere as low as 9.
That's
which is-
correct below it.
Yeah,
And our grouping is a 3.
yeah.
New Mexico,
Uh,
48 New Mexico.
Yeah, and you can see that does vary across this quite a bit, because it's just like you said, you know, it depends on what you're comparing to. You can benchmark yourself on population, on land area, on total budget, on any of these number of factors, and you're gonna get a different mix. So But I just want to point out that when you look at these three, to me that GRASP index is a good one because it's really our calculated value of everything you're doing, everything you're providing. And you just pay it on a per capita basis, on a population basis. And again, the numbers show that what you're doing, you really are a normal community. You may dig deep and find that, wow, we have these little, these unique qualities, everybody does, and identify those. And this just gives you a context within which to say, okay, here's where we're unique or different. We may be high, we may be low, but what are the reasons for that? If it's low, do we want to change it? If it's high, do we want to celebrate it? Do we want to recognize that? Do we want to really, build our image around that or something?
And just to give you a context, South Bend is down there, and they have a 15, and that was a project that we worked on together with Green Play, and they have numerous, park sites that are 64, a little less than you, but they have serious budget consequences of their system aging. So they're using a lot of this to make those decisions on redundancy and really critical capital investment decisions within the community, because they don't have enough money to do a redevelopment of the entire system.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
that's a
really
really
needs
good
to do.
point. So if your population did not change, you added no parks, but you also let all the rest of the playgrounds become ones because you didn't do anything, this GRASP index would go down. So it works both ways. Like you said, it's a dashboard that tells you in 10 years from now, if that goes up or down, it could be either because things deteriorated, your budgets were way slashed and you couldn't replace equipment, it was allowed to fall apart. It could mean that your population went way up and those other entities didn't work with you and provide the facilities that you hoped they would. There could be a lot of different reasons, but you can benchmark and say, how are we progressing or digressing from this? So that's why this snapshot in time right now is useful. It's like I went to my doctor recently and he took a bunch of x-rays. Well, he said, hang on to those, because 20 years from now, they may be really useful because it's how did my body change in that period of time?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A lot of great information. Took a lot of time to compile it all, I'm sure.
Many months.
It's what we do.
It's
Yeah.
good.
We appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity.
Any other questions while the guru is in the house?
I do want to say thank you for your level of interest in this, because a lot of people look at this and their eyes kind of glaze over. And the fact that you have so many questions means that you actually are paying attention to this information, which is great. I think it'll be, hopefully you can find some usefulness as a result of that. But yeah, all those questions really get me excited that you care enough and pay attention to ask those kind of questions.
Thank you. So, thank you. The next item is board initiatives.
Actually, can you start by asking,
Oh, sure.
under new business, if there's any, do we want to discuss anything on the updated mission, vision, and values, or suggestions as we move forward? What staff had done is, in the past, if you're familiar, our mission was almost 3 sentences long, it was about a paragraph. And one of our goals was trying to put it to where it's a belief system of the park district. So we want to make it more simplified. And what is our core mission of the district? So where staff knows off the top of their head, this is what we're trying to do. When we first had our mission, we started talking about it. One of my questions was, who knows it? No one can even. What's happening. Nobody had it memorized. Well, and that's why we're looking at going a set mission with a vision, and then looking at 3 or 4 core values and what the values represent as we move forward. And basically, we're looking to put this on the August agenda for approval, so I didn't know if there's any specific discussion or questions that anyone had or likes us to refocus or look at between now and then.
Alright. So
It was a good meeting. I mean, we had really good discussion with the folks that were there for over an hour, and it needed to be done.
Oh, the mission statement.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good session, and I was very pleased with what we came out of the meeting with. I thought it was very succinct and catchy, and I was very pleased with what we developed. It wasn't taken lightly. It was a good discussion.
Board initiatives, I came up with 2. Carlo and Jen are going to work with the village as growth comes to the west side to improve the wording, hopefully, if they'll entertain that with you on the land act, all that kind of stuff. And then Marlo and Jen again, mostly Jen on this one, overlay on the maps for forest preserves and HOA parks and things like that, so we see if there's areas that appear to be underserved by us but are actually being served in other ways, so we can kind of see that. And then I think you wanted to see an overlay of the sports fields fall, similar to how we did the parks for this study.
So as we move forward, GIS being able to break it out and differentiate.
And that's all I have. Okay. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Casmark, do you have any comments tonight? No. No, okay. Commissioner Newton? No. Commissioner Polling? No. Oh my gosh, Commissioner Steinis?
I'm tired.
Okay. I just want to welcome Heather to the board. We did that just a couple weeks ago, swearing in, so this is your first official meeting. So thank you very much for volunteering to be a part of this and going through the selection process, and here you are.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's a lot of exciting stuff going on right now, so.
Yes, welcome. And then for staff, I grab idea other things as I go around, and Lyle had their eyes on these guys, and then when you open it up, there's all kinds of sponsors. So I thought, going forward, if we could look at sponsorship for the patriotic picnic. And Joliet Park District did a whole page in the Herald News on all the sponsors for their fireworks, so just to share with staff for some ideas going forward.
One thing we did actually talk about afterwards is, as we move forward, and Michelle and I had a brief conversation, but we need to break down our sponsorship a little bit. So sometimes we're just trying to grab the full event sponsorship and we miss out on the whole boat instead of like trying to sponsor the inflatable section. So we're gonna look at different ways as we move forward in the rest of 2015 and 2016 to try to break out our sponsorship aspect. And then additionally, with this week's board report, you'll have our 2015 goals that follow with the charters and the tasks, so you guys can see how we're doing. And we'll report on those about every 3 months to see what our status is.
And then the last thing I had is thank you to everyone. The patriotic picnic and fireworks, I heard all good reviews. I haven't heard anything negative on it. I thought it was an excellent event, and it seems to get bigger every year, which is why I'm like sponsors, because it just keeps growing. So thank you everyone for all your hard work on that. That's all I have. Seeking a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion was made by Commissioner Steinis. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Newton seconded it.
Those in favor?
Yay.
Aye. Ayes?
Aye.
Everybody said.
I thought you wanted to say it first.